and recognize it. But anyway, that's the best I can throw out there.
Well, it obviously it was a IRS tax related issue.
Yep.
And I think there's no secret. President Trump, I think he can't stand the IRS. I mean, for how many years is he being audited, right?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, there's no secret. I hate the IRS too. I think we need to eliminate it, to be candid.
I agree.
And listen, it's a bane on our existence. The approaches that they take, auditing approaches, it has been used not just in this century, but a lot in the last century, since its inception, to go after political opponents. Almost every president in the 20th century did this. And it's just a real problem. I think we got to check the whole thing. We got to rethink our tax system.
Yeah, we need to go to tariffs, external. I mean, this is again what many of our founders are for. Andrew Jackson of my great state of Tennessee warned about the power to tax over and over. He was so opposed to it, and a central bank, which he did away with.
He was right to do it too. What he got rid of was the second attempt at what Alexander Hamilton started or attempted to start in the Washington administration. It's absurd for government to control our money. Now, again, we have it in the Constitution. There is a need to coin a monetary system, but that was gold-backed monetary system that we had forever until really 1913, and it slowly whittled away through the 20th century. The power to tax is the power to destroy. And really, it is not inaccurate to say that taxation is theft. The thing that we determine in our political process is how much thievery do we want to allow the government to have and for what intended purposes. And when you consider, as I mentioned yesterday, the fact that right about this time of year is when most Americans have finally paid all their taxes, state, federal, and local. And it's absurd that we're in that situation.
Yep, 100%. All right, so there's a press conference held. Here's what was said. I guess this is this gentleman, Todd, and his daughter, who is, I think, a big Trump friend.
Mr. Priestley, do you have any reward for the actions that led to your convictions?
Oh, you must be CNN. Do I have any remorse? I would have remorse if it was something that I did.
Well, your wife did apologize last year.
Well, let me explain to you how that works, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You're placed in a position as a defendant to either bow down and kiss the ass of the Department of Justice and accept responsibility for things that you did not do in order to avoid a stronger sentence. And the corruption that went on in our case is going to continue to unfold, and Alex is going to continue to give each and every one of you the evidence that as it comes in.
So clearly President Trump was briefed on what he's talking about, right?
Yeah, well, I would think so, yes. By the way, I want to make something very clear to Americans, because we're so far away from what I'm about to describe that it is hard to even understand. I wonder if everyone listening to this recognizes the fact that until Woodrow Wilson's administration, the government never took away anything that you made in income. Never. Except for a brief period during the Civil War, and that eventually got struck down by the Supreme Court. Never in American history were Americans subject to this problem. When we look at this person, and you've got a reporter saying, "Or do you have any remorse over anything?" The question I have is, why should any of us have any remorse over what we do with the money that we earn, unless we're doing something specifically otherwise criminal? The criminality here is entirely with the tax collection process. There is no indication that I'm aware of that this couple was doing anything immoral, unethical, or illegal with the money they had, beyond what the IRS determined was immoral, unethical, and illegal regarding the payment of those taxes. We lived in a country where this never became an issue, ever. And we need to go back there, I believe. We've got to someday, and I pray to God someday, we can get rid of the income tax.
Indeed. And because here's part of what our income tax does. It funds networks like National Public Radio and National Public Television. Listen to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
The Corporation for Public Broadcasting is using taxpayer dollars to actively suppress the truth, suppress diverse viewpoints, and produce some of the most outlandish, ludicrous content. After listening to what we've heard today, we will be calling for the complete and total defund and dismantling of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Here's how it works in America every single day, private businesses operate on their own without government funding. We believe that you all can hate us on your own dime.
Well said. Well said.
It's a great statement, and that encapsulates precisely the problem that we have with any federal government spending. What are they doing? Why can't all of these things happen in the private sector? One area of argument that I'm having with so-called evangelicals, mostly these progressive evangelicals, that constantly argue with me publicly and privately about charity. And when I call for getting rid of charity in the government, they freak out. They were freaking out over the USAID funding, by the way, and saying all the people that are going to die. You had Christianity Today and Russell Moore, Brent Leatherwood at the ERLC, the Southern Baptist ERLC, and others. The Holy Post podcast, and Phil Vischer and Skye Jitani. These people were arguing that against saying it's unchristian to get rid of USAID funding because people are going to die in Africa. And here's my response to that. There is no command in Scripture for government to meet people's needs. Individually, we should meet people's needs, but we have a situation where the federal government has monopolized charity. Even with all that, America's the most charitable country in the world when it comes to private money that's given to various efforts. It's still amazing that we're able to do it. We have so much of our money stolen. But think of the wealth that has gone away because we're throwing it into government programs of charity. And that money could be used for investment into an economy that could do abundantly more of a charitable nature and far more effectively. So these are the arguments 100%. That we have. We think that government's got to undertake all these processes, all these things, and they don't. They suck at it. They waste the money. We just saw that with the beginnings of the Doge effort. It's fraud and abuse. And it pays. We actually know that in charitable efforts, particularly through USAID, that there are people that are becoming uber wealthy because money's getting thrown at them. Just one small example, not related to USAID, is that $2 billion, much of which was going to go directly to Stacey Abrams through the EPA that Lee Zeldin cut off. They were just going to hand her $2 billion and get it out the door to her. This is crazy what we're doing. Government is not our friend. It is a bane upon our existence. It is a drag to our lives and our freedoms and our sacred honor, and we need to cut it out everywhere we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to this poll. Real clear polling. 2025 governor and 2026 Senate races heat up. Tell me what these polls are showing.
Well, we're seeing that we better get in a couple competitive governor's races. We'd better get our house in order. Real quickly, where are we here? In the Michigan race is one of them.
Yep.
You know, there are real opportunities for us to pick up some governor seats, and there may be some challenges. We're going to have some good wins too. But even more incredible is that in Senate races coming up, and I've been saying this for a little while, it's going to be hard for Republicans to lose the Senate. They just may gain some seats. There are some real opportunities there. It's the House that is really in play right now, in my opinion. And I think that's the second lesson we get from this article.
The second lesson we get from the article. So there you go. So if you had to guess now, we lose the House but keep the Senate.
I'm not yet prepared to predict that we lose the House, but I think that it is a sketchy situation. I will say it's encouraging to see that the majority of the up in the air seats right now that most organizations are scoring are Democrat seats. There are a few Republican seats that are in play, but it's mostly Democrat seats. The problem that it concerns me every day is you win in politics with numbers. And our Congress right now, even though there's some positive things in this reconciliation bill, our Congress right now is doing a whole lot to discourage people coming out to vote. The entire Trump coalition that showed up in November, it's not going to be the same electorate in 2026. And I don't perceive the Republicans are prepared for that. So there could be some shocking surprises. And that's why I think, particularly Republicans in the House better be careful. I think the Senate has to keep his eye on it as well, too. But the people in the House better be careful, because you do not drive people to polls, even in most congressional races. You have to take the electorate that comes to you, and you got to figure out ways to poll and drag people in. The way you drag people in to come vote for you is to do fantastic things in Washington, D.C. And there's nothing fantastic happening in Washington, D.C. It's not horrible, but what we need is for Donald Trump, if he wants to help Congress stay in Republican hands, the best thing he can do through Russ Vought's efforts in Office of Management and Budget is to throw out $1 trillion or more of immediate rescissions, actual time-specific right now cuts in spending, and for the Republican Congress to pass them. If they could pass $1 trillion or more of spending cuts during this year outside of the election cycle, I think that the American people will get excited and they'll come on board. As it is, everything I hear internally and what I observe externally in social media and talking to other people that see things, we've got a potentially depressed electorate coming up in 2026 amongst the MAGA base, who are just a little bit frustrated right now.
Well, and I think that frustration is increasing with what appears to be the changing position of President Trump when it comes to Ukraine and Russia. And I guess going along with the idea to continue giving munitions and equipment to Zelensky. I mean, at some point, and this thing's... Yeah, you haven't heard that?
No. I haven't heard specifically they're going to do it, but it's being implied. But go ahead and finish your thought, and then I'll...
Yeah, right. And I'm reporting on some of this tonight in the Worldview Report, and showing a video of what President Trump was saying when he was running for office, and then what he's saying now. And this is causing some of the voters, MAGA people, to start saying, what? So I guess what I'm saying is I'm agreeing with you, and I'm seeing some things, and I'm reporting on it into tonight's Worldview Report newscast with a video series that someone put out showing this transition from the campaign to now as president. And you're right. If he doesn't stay the course for tapping down World War III, he's going to have a lot of people that just won't show up to vote, that he needs to show up to vote.
Well, on the Ukraine issue, one of the things that I think was a strategic error on Donald Trump's part was to say that he was going to get rid of the war in 2 weeks, and to believe that he had enough of a rapport with Vladimir Putin to move things very quickly. Because another factor came into play, and that's Zelensky being an absolute idiot, and especially in that White House thing. I think Donald Trump might have pulled this off if Zelensky weren't such a whack job in the Oval Office as he was, although I think Donald Trump's response was pretty good. But, the other thing, well, I will say this to surmise. It does look like there's a possibility that funding to Ukraine may increase, because Donald Trump is saying he's so concerned about the people getting killed. Putin is really trying to stir this up right now. if he does change course on that, it's going to be a real challenge in 2026. And I don't support changing course either. Make Europe go do it. Just forget it.
Not a traditional cafe.
You just forget it, let it go, make Europe pick it up. And if he has to walk away from the table and let them sort it out, I think that's something that he needs to consider doing. Do not get us back into that quagmire.
Here's the clip, actually, I'm going to play tonight on, I'll give you guys a preview, playing on the Worldview Report. This is from the Hindustan Times over in India. Watch this.
Can't hear it.
There you go. So we got to be careful because we don't want World War III. That's for sure. I mean, there'll be shortages. Again, I'm talking about it in the Worldview Report tonight. There'll be shortages. And if China gets involved and you got your pharmaceuticals being made over there, and then with all this distraction, they decide to put an embargo around Taiwan with computer chips there, which we still haven't, obviously brought manufacturing back here enough to make up for that. You want to talk about a mess in the economy, not to mention the threat to life. This is a big problem, and I'm urging people to really, really pray, but also prepare. Jim?
Agreed. Listen, I think the first course of action that Donald Trump's going to take, if I'm reading him correctly, is massive sanctions on Russia. He had done that pretty convincingly in his first administration. I think he plans on slapping him pretty big this time around. We'll see what that happens. I'm not the biggest fan of sanctions. I think there might be a usefulness of it. One of the biggest problems with sanctions is that they're mostly banking sanctions, which means if they can cut off Russia, they can also cut you off for political purposes. So that's one of my big concerns with sanctions.
We now have video of Lindsey Graham in Kiev. Here we go.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for having us. We're back. No, we're back. Happy to see you. 7th-grade.
Mr. President, such
Good to see you. Just visit the comments, especially now, such challenging period.
Thank you, President.
Wow. I don't trust Lindsey Graham. And that other guy, wasn't he the Vietnam pretender? Stolen valor?
Yeah, exactly. Listen, Democrats and Lindsey Graham are, and a few others in Congress, they're so absurd in their understanding of how to deal with these situations. And I do have some trouble with the fact that even on the Republican side of the aisle, there's some undermining of Trump foreign policy in regards to this. I think you got to leave that to the president and quit trying to negotiate around his back. But don't trust Lindsey Graham's opinion on any of this. He is deliberately focused on going to war and increasing our engagement in conflicts around the world, and we've got to stop it. I know Donald Trump doesn't want to go there,
why?
But if he does, it's a problem for us.
Has he been funded by the military-industrial complex? Why does he want to go to war?
Well, that's part of it. He just believes it, though, too. Remember, he and John McCain were buddies. John McCain was a huge neocon when it came to international engagement. This is the old idea of nation building that has caused us so much harm for so long, that has had the CIA often engaged in situations where they were actually sometimes killing American citizens, causing disruptions and political engagements. I mean, listen, to undertake a scheme of trying to keep things in check around the world through your military is always a loser. It's always caused problems, not just for us, but for countries throughout history. Unless you're totally willing, as ancient Rome did, to engage your army to imperialistically take over other countries, it's a stupid idea. And ultimately, it was stupid for Rome because they spread the tentacles too far. And in effect, they had, countrywide neuropathy at the ends of it that ultimately helped bring them down.
Yep.
This is just not a good strategy. We need to be really good at doing what we do at home very well. And people like Lindsey Graham just don't even understand this.
100%. Let's go to Steve Miller today. This is good. Here we go.
Even just yesterday, we saw whenever a judge rules against this administration, you say they're going rogue. Do you think a judge should just rubber stamp what your White House does? If not, what checks and balances do you think should be in place for this White House?
It is not the job of a district court judge to perform an individual green light or red light on every single policy that the president takes as the head of the executive branch. Just think about the premise baked into your question, respectfully, Pam. You're saying that when the American people elect a president of the United States of America,
I'm not saying
well, it's the implication, who is the sole head of the executive branch. Well, let me finish. I will answer the question happily. But look, when you have these kinds of lazy assumptions built into questions, it makes it hard to have a constructive dialogue.
What is a lazy assumption? I said you all had to win.
You said is it my expectation?
I'm speaking
because now you're putting... You said, is it my expectation? It's not just you. It's the whole media. In other words, when you hear a sentence like...
It is a completely fair question. You say judges rule against the White House.
And I will gladly answer it. When you say, do we think district court judges should rubber stamp each action? There is a premise that is built into that is absurd. The president is the sole head of the executive branch. He is the only officer in the entire government that's elected by the entire American people. Democracy cannot function. In fact, democracy does not exist at all if each action the president takes, foreign policy, diplomatic, military, national security, has to be individually approved by 700 district court judges. That's democracy. So if there's 15 communist crazy judges on the court, that each of them, as a team working together, can block and freeze each and every executive action? Joe Biden was allowed by that same court system.
Some of them
to
are Trump
import 20
judges,
million
though. Are
illegal
they?
foreigners
Why did Trump
into
put
this
these
country.
crazy communist judges, as you call them, on the bench?
You heard President Trump himself say that the Federalist Society and Leonard Leo has created a broken system for judicial vetting. And God knows
He
this
did
time
say that.
around, we are not going to be using...
So does that mean he doesn't support picking
we are not
Amy
going to
Coney
be
Barrett
using-
for the Supreme Court?
What it means is simply this and nothing more. We're not going to be using the Federal Society to make judicial nominations at all going forward. But
Wow. Jim?
It was a little bit of an appropriate smackdown on Leonard Leo, to be candid with you. There were a lot of people I knew in Washington, D.C. that were concerned about some of the lesser-known judicial nominees that were taking place, that were happening during the first Trump administration. I even with the Amy Coney Barrett thing, like you're going to sometimes not hit it right on a Supreme Court nominee. You just don't know sometimes what's going to happen. There's internal politics, even in the Supreme Court. Some people succumb to it, some don't. I still think at the top level, Donald Trump did a really good job, and those were not all Federalist Society picks. But the lower courts, they were, Leonard Leo was leading a team of nominees, and it was increasingly frustrating to see some of them that were going through as I was tracking it at the time. That said, let me go to the point of judges running executive branch policy. I'm going to slightly demur with Steve Miller and say there is a role for courts to play here. The problem is the particular role that they're playing right now. And we can't go back and say, hey, we have these nominees and they're all bad nominees and we're all mad at it. But what we can say is precisely what he did say. It is not the role of the Article 3 branch of government, the judicial branch of government, to decide day by day and case by case what the executive branch can do. They need to go through the normal court process. These injunctions are absolutely absurd. There's no reason for them. And they're not even always, in this round of so many court cases, taking discrete cases. What do I mean by discrete cases? Where there is a specific plaintiff who's coming to against the federal government and saying, I don't think that this is fair. And then that has to be decided before a jury.
Yep.
We're not doing that.
That's our broadcast. That's our broadcast. Have a great weekend, folks. Tonight on the Worldview Report, a whistleblower from the U.S. Department of Agriculture has charged that the Biden regime was actively operating a policy of forgiving loans to farmers based on the color of their skin. The Trump administration has canceled its contract with Moderna for developing a human bird flu vaccine. But what comes next could be even worse. A liberal Catholic cardinal weighs in on the likelihood of Pope Leo continuing the liberal